Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. If you guys can drop in the chat where you're from, your favorite emoji, or a fun fact about you, let's get the conversation going in the chat. You can also ask any questions in the chat that you have, and we'll make sure to get to those questions at the end of the webinar. So we're so excited to have you here for our Going Global in Canada webinar, where we will be talking about all the things you need to know about expanding your business into Canada. We're going to tell you the benefits of expanding into ShipBob's Canadian Fulfillment Center and the requirements needed in order to store and ship your products locally in Canada. Before we jump into the actual presentation, I wanted to do a quick housekeeping item. We will be asking you a few questions throughout the presentation to get a better understanding of where your journey is in expanding internationally. So if you are interested in doing those polls, you can scan the QR code that's on the screen right here or go to slido.com and enter the code 258856. I'll leave it up here for a few more seconds so you can scan it, but it will pop up throughout the presentation. So no worries if you don't get it now. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I'm excited to introduce the panelists for today's webinar. My name is Brooke Starling. I'm the Product Marketing Specialist here at ShipBob, and I will be the moderator today. We also have Jordan Russell, who is the Manager of Global Sales and Expansion from ShipBob, and Michael Carroll is also joining us. He is the co-founder of Canusa. And Jordan and Michael both have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this topic. So again, please feel free to ask as many questions as you would like, and we will make sure to answer them. If we don't get to them by the end of the webinar, we will definitely email you and answer those questions. We have a packed full agenda for today's webinar. Jordan's gonna start us off talking about growing your business globally with ShipBob, and then he's gonna get a little more granular into why ShipBob Canada specifically and the benefits. We'll then pass the mic over to Michael, who will give you more information about Canoosa, how to get started shipping locally in Canada, and the rules and regulations required to do so. All right, so we have our first poll. You can go ahead and scan that QR code if you didn't already, or join at slido.com and enter in that code. But we are really interested in learning how important is it for you to expand your business internationally. So 1 star would be, it's not important for me right now. 5 being, it's the most important thing that I'm focusing on right now. And it's definitely a big initiative for 2022. Okay, so we've got some 3s, 4s, and 5s. That's great. Another 3. And if you're having trouble with accessing this poll, you can also just drop your answer in the chat as well. Okay. Got some 1s, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So there are a variety of answers here, which is totally okay. I think that no matter what you answer, this webinar will be really helpful for you to learn about expanding internationally, especially in Canada, especially for all the 3 to 5s. It looks like everyone's a 3 to 5 now. This will really help you gain the knowledge to start shipping and storing your product locally in Canada. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Jordan Russell to talk more on ShipBob and expanding into ShipBob Canada.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke, for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are in the world today to hear about Canada and cross-border. We're going to spend a few slides just going over what ShipBob, who ShipBob is, kind of going through those kind of presentations, and then we'll dive into cross-border shipments, then finally into the Canada piece of that we're all here for today. If you're new to ShipBob, we want to be your trusted omni-fulfillment partner. So we are a global logistics platform that's helping DMs all over the globe. So we have 30 plus global fulfillment centers. We offer custom packaging, carbon neutral fulfillment. We have B2B fulfillment here in the United States. And we have warehouses in the United States, Canada, Poland, UK, and Australia. Next slide. Cool. So why going global? When we talk about going global, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I can see from like a lot of people here, we have a lot of people from the United States. So going global could mean doing cross-border exports to anywhere in the world. I see some person from Vancouver is here. So you're already in Canada. So going global for you would mean shipping maybe to the United States. So going global is a big term, but when we use it here, we really talk about expanding your cross-border e-commerce business, opening up your business to ship anywhere in the world that you have a customer. And why is that? Well, 70% of customers are making international purchases. You also will see a 17% increase in your average order value for international orders. There's a lot of like things that go into that, but the reality is international customers are more likely to have a bigger shopping cart due to duties and taxes. So they're going to maximize what they can buy at the point of sale. And then also what we're really seeing for a lot of businesses today is a 60% growth when brands offer international shipping. A lot of things in the United States, we get a little bit scared to go global here. We don't see the world outside of it. I always like to give this statistic. President Obama said this back in 2008, that 92% of the world's population lies outside of the United States. So if you're not looking to expand your business, if you're a United States customer around the world, you're missing out on 92% of the population. Huge amount of sales that you could be tackling by doing cross-border shipments. Cool. So brands everywhere are embracing this cross-border. So kind of what we talked about, we're attracting markets of global buyers with cross-border fulfillment. 47% of consumers saying have a local presence was a significant factor for brands when they shop. So what that means is from a ShipBob perspective, we are providing that local presence. You all joined today because you want to hear about Canada, and that's our local presence in Canada. So for those Canadian merchants, what that means is it becomes like a domestic shipment. So if I'm a US business and I'm selling into Canada today, I'm doing an export, and my end merchants might be hit with duties and taxes, GST, HST, lots of different fees that go for those cross-border moves. But if I'm in a Canada fulfillment center, that means I'm in Canada, and those shipments that used to go cross-border are now within those borders, giving you this domestic shipments that are making it more attractive for those local merchants in Canada and wanting them to buy more because of reduced carrier costs, transit times, prevents those customs fees and import taxes, and it's just unlocking a new opportunity for you to sell. Cool. So cross-border without the complexity requires a few things. It requires this global network. It's okay. It requires this global network, some connected technology, some local tax and tariff compliance, which we're going to get to in a second, and then consistent shopper experiences that go along with it. Cool. So when we're looking at this, we're building a strategic inventory plan. We're trying to distribute inventory closer to your customers. So if you have a huge customer base that are buying from you in Canada, being closer to them and providing a faster time in transit is a great way of doing so by being in our new Toronto or in our Ottawa facilities in Canada. The reasons, once again, we kind of talked about, you're decreasing your shipping costs, faster shipping expectations. It's a lower transportation admissions. So if you're looking to be one of those companies that are going green, your footprint of delivering is a lot less than versus being a cross-border shipment. So a lot of good things are coming from having a strategic inventory plan with your merchandise. So digitizing your warehouse management. So you use data and technology to make smarter inventory management decisions. So when we're looking at this at ShipBob, we'll consult with you, we'll talk about it, and we'll look at your orders all over the globe. And we'll talk to you and say like, hey, 20% of the orders that you do with us today are going to Canada. Have you thought about like going after that Canadian market and being inside of there? It's a great way of using the technology that we have today, the warehouse management that you have with ShipBob, to kind of look at and see like where my market is, where can I expand, where can I grow? And that's what we're here to kind of talk about today. So we have a customer spotlight here. So this is a really good one. Black Claw is one of our merchants that has gone to almost all of our global fulfillment centers. It's been a great partner with us. I'll just kind of read this to you. They've said, I always wanted a truly global fulfillment partner. I've been trying to find this solution for years, and ShipBob has multiple fulfillment centers in the US, one in Canada, now two, one in the EU, one in the UK, and all locations filter back into one centralized warehouse management system. So as we talked about, we're managing your warehouse system. We have this all here so you can look at your orders, and then we're able to consult with you to help you expand to these global regions, kind of like West had here with Black Claw. Cool. So now we get to the fun part of this presentation and like why we're here. So why ShipBob Canada? So Canada's e-commerce market is expected to grow by almost $80 billion by 2024. That's right, $80 billion. That's a huge amount of revenue to tackle with your business today. Also, there's an estimated 25 million Canadian online shoppers in 2021. That's an increase over 5.2 million in 2018. Now, there's a lot of factors in there that goes to effect. Obviously, the pandemic kind of made us all like buy shopping more online, but trends are showing this will continue over time because we've now got used to it over the past few years of ordering a lot of our products through websites and having it delivered. So having this e-commerce shopping online market are going to continue to increase year over year. And then the next cool thing that kind of happened in 2021 was Canada has seen a rapid shift in e-commerce growth and is now actually the 9th largest e-commerce market in the world. That's pretty significant, especially when you're looking to expand your business and take on more sales and generate more revenue. Having the 9th largest e-commerce market right to our neighbors to the north is fantastic. It is an easy way to start expanding your business globally by just looking to the north to our friendly neighbors in Canada. So as we kind of mentioned, we got ShipBob Canada locations. So we already had our Ottawa, Ontario facility for the past 3 years. But the big news is we just opened our Toronto facility and it started shipping out yesterday. We have pictures that we can send out afterwards of us processing our first WROs, our first orders that are hitting the Toronto facility. And then the next cool thing that's happening, hopefully later here in late 2022, is that we're going to be opening a Western Canada facility. Why? Canada's pretty big. I don't know if you know this, but it's definitely the length of the United States as well. So imagine me being all the way in New York City and shipping all the way to LA. It's a long time in transit. So in ShipBob US, we have all these FCs around the country to help you with your ideal inventory distribution. We're going to have that here later in 2022 as well for ShipBob Canada. Cool. Another customer spotlight that we've kind of all talked about. You've heard me say these things of why Canada is so great, why it's important. And here's an actual customer spotlight with Umbre's sunglasses who saw that. And we've highlighted some stuff here in blue that I'm just going to read out to you that kind of hit points on what I've already talked about. So having us be in Canada, this would offer us the ability to reduce taxes and tariffs that come with international shipping. And now Canadian-based orders will see a reduction in shipping costs. So now a customer can get their package without spending extra Canadian dollars on duties and taxes after purchasing a pair of sunglasses. So really, this removes a lot of barriers to purchase for Canadian merchants when you're inside their home country, because it's no longer having to worry, like we've talked about, duties and taxes, more expensive shipping costs. It really makes it a much more beneficial market for you to be in if you can have a facility there in Canada that ShipBob can offer. Cool. So we've kind of talked about all of this and we have some Canadian requirements. I know some people are already in Canada, so like you're probably going to have some of these already, but for our non-based Canadian merchants, there's some things that you're going to have to get involved with. You're going to have to set yourself up with a goods and service tax. There's a possibility that you're going to maybe need an NPN, which is a natural product number. Think of this as like a similar to an FDA kind of process here in the United States. That NPN usually goes with supplements and things like that. And then also, if you're a non-Canadian business, you need to confirm your products can be sold within Canada, and then also have this thing that's called an NRI, a non-resident importer. So this allows you to import the goods into the Canadian market and get it into our fulfillment centers. So for a lot of people here today, you would have to go and get a GST and an NRI for sure to get into our Canadian market. But have no fear, we're going to talk about this next.
Hey, Jordan, before we jump into this, we have a question. What is the threshold for sales that requires GST?
Ooh, good question. So we're going to let Michael answer this question when we get to the Canusa part here in a second. So hold on 1 second with that question. We'll have Michael answer that when he goes through the GST information.
Perfect. Thanks, Jordan.
Cool. I think we have, yes. So cool. We have another poll for you all, make this a very interactive. So I just told you some things that you need to have required: an NRI, a GST, possibly an NPN. So the question is, go ahead and take this poll. Who's already set up and ready to sell in Canada? Yes, I'm ready to go. No, I need some guidance. Or I'm just not quite sure yet. All right, we got some no's. I need some guidance. Ooh, not sure. Okay. Try to wait for a few more of you to respond. Okay. All right, we got 10 responses here, I can see. So overall, 70% of you are saying I need some guidance. Well, luckily you came to the right place today. We have a very special expert here today to kind of talk to you about all these things that are required to be in Canada, answer all your questions around the taxes and GST, all of those things, and what it truly means to get set up. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our trusted advisor, Michael at Canusa.
Michael, you're on mute. I think click it one more time. There you go.
Thank you, Jonathan. Out there, and thank you for joining us, and the team at ShipBob that did an incredible job organizing this this event today. And thank you for that introduction. I think I'll start off by answering that question that you had, Jonathan, which was what is the threshold for GST registration in Canada? So I'll have more detail on GST a little later in the presentation, but registration required by any business in Canada with annual sales in excess of $30,000. And foreign companies can, there really isn't a minimum threshold for of your sales. You can register, become a GST registrant and participate in GST. So hopefully that answered your question. So yeah, our goal as a partner with ShipBob is to help you succeed in Canada with your sales, and we do that by giving you cost certainty, compliance, excellent service, and reliability. And so the approach that we take when we first engage with a customer is we want to get things right the first time, focus on compliance. We understand the importance, especially of a foreign company moving into a new marketplace, to understand what those costs will be, to capture those costs. So the area that we like to focus on cost certainty, of course, are our rates, the fees that we bill to you. So you have certainty, you understand what our rate structure or our matrix is, and it's very easy, and it's priced competitively to allow you to succeed in Canada. And the other cost certainty that we look at is customs, duties, taxes, transportation costs. We like to lock things in. When we give you numbers, you can take them to the bank and build your Canadian pricing structure. So our approach is getting things right the first time, compliance, pricing, structure, so that won't be any surprises, or if there are surprises, the surprises will be positive surprises and not negative ones. So we like to keep it simple, look at exactly what the customer's needs are, and then build a solution specific to each of your needs. So when we get involved in the relationship, we usually receive an introduction from one of the team at ShipBob, and they'll usually ask us to reach out to you and get the conversation started as far as getting you established in Canada. So the first thing that we do when we get the introduction from ShipBob is we'll reach out to you, new statistics, and we'll give you a customer profile sheet. And what we want to do there is really get to know you, the customer, where you're located, what your corporate what your corporate entity is where they're based out of, people that we'll be doing business with, the kinds of products you make, where you make them, what your experience is in Canada. Are you a newcomer, or do you already have some business experience shipping to and from Canada, and the types of goods that you'll be shipping, where you'll make them. All of these things will help us build a strategy to start the discussion and get things moving. Send you the customer profile upon the profile back. We'll reach out to you and schedule a call. So we'll take that profile information and you give us, and we'll start. First of all, we'll open up a dialogue with Canada Revenue Agency and Canada Agency, and with that profile information, we will a business account, with the government. So that'll be your account number and exact all business under separate accounts with the Canadian government. Recognize you. Once we have your business number open, we will register an importer and exporter. So you'll get your business number. Will usually be assigned within 48 hours of our applying for it, and then your account to import and export will be open immediately. So that if we had the application today and we filed it by ready to import and export from Canada. The second account that we will open on your behalf is our goods and services account. And what that will do will allow you to do participate in the collection and remittance of goods and services tax on behalf of the government, but it'll also open up some opportunities for you to recoup some costs, some GST costs. So the first step is we get the introduction from ShipBob. We send you the sheet. You complete the sheet, give us all the details that we ask for. We'll then create a proposal that has all the necessary documents, come back to you, schedule a time for a call where we will then delve into your specific needs, and then we'll build a strategy forward. Once we get the documents filed with the Canadian government, get the business number rolling, then we turn to you and we start to look at and build. And so the three areas that we're going to focus on is the harmonized classification of goods, the value of those goods, and the country of origin of those goods. And each of those differs from company to company, and therefore the strategy will differ a little bit. I'll just get you to go to the next slide. So the first thing, the first thing that we're going to do is look at determining the correct harmonized classification of the goods that you're bringing in. And so we'll reach out to, part of the profile sheet that we're going to send you is, do you know the classification of any of the currently manufacturing, shipping? Do you know the classification number, harmonized classification of the parts that you're importing to be involved in the manufacturing process? And the reason for that is the harmonized classification language by which customs brokers classify goods. It's a global document, 6-digit level. All World Trade Organization countries use the harmonized system for classifying goods. So it'll determine your description and duty rate of your goods, but it'll also determine the rule of origin that applies on many of the trade agreements that Canada is involved in, like the USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, or the CETA agreement, which is the European Canadian Trade Agreement, or the CPTPP agreement. all of these free trade agreements and others use the harmonized classification for determining which rule of origin applies for eligibility under these getting those harmonized classification numbers right are very important. It's important for us to assess the rate of duty, and it's important for determining eligibility in the variety under the variety of trade agreements that Canada has. Some things when you're involved in determining classification of goods, some things are very obvious in the tariff and easy to classify, and sometimes things are a little more difficult. So when we find ourselves in a situation, if something's obvious, if it's named in the tariff and it's a bit of a no-brainer, and you already know that number, we'll look at this classification, we'll troubleshoot it somewhat, and we'll make sure it's right so that you can use whatever determination we make on rates of duty, you can feel comfortable building your selling price in Canada to incorporate whatever that rate of duty is. It's important for us to understand too when we evaluate whether or not which trade agreements apply. But the other thing that we can do, we have a number of resources that are available to us. For instance, U.S. Customs will all of their rulings on an online database, so that when we're looking at a certain product or certain product category, we'll peruse that and just look at different customs rulings that would that have preceded our evaluation. And if we want to reach out to Canada Customs or even U.S. Customs for an advanced ruling on a product, we can go ahead and do that. Plays into cost certainty, getting this right, making sure that you're compliant, and making sure that if Customs comes back and wants to do a reevaluation or has questions as to what it came up with that, we'll feel very comfortable in making a submission that those numbers will be accurate. The next thing I want to talk about is valuation. And again,
hold on,
very similar to the harmonized.
Hey, Michael, one quick question. Go back to that slide real quick. So a lot of our attendees here,
Yes.
You brought up a lot of these trade agreements. Do I have to be a Canadian business to benefit from, like, let's say I manufacture my stuff in France and I'm shipping into Canada. Am I still able to be a part of this economic trade agreement with Europe, even if I'm not a Canadian resident?
Yes. So let's buying the goods from France, but they're shipping directly to Canada on a through bill of lading. Then those goods can enter Canada duty free under the CETA agreement. If that same U.S. company buys the goods from France, imports them into the United States first, and then sells them to Canada to a Canadian purchaser, then the trade agreement would not apply. So there's a direct shipment for goods coming to Canada. So it doesn't matter that the purchaser or the importer is foreign to Canada, i.e. a non-resident importer. It's moved to Canada on a through bill of lading, and that we have, even though he is American, that will be acting as the will be under the Canadian European agreement.
Awesome.
For example, that
yeah, no, that's awesome. So everyone on this call, he's going to, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
That question that you just raised, I consider to be by moving your inventory, but have a free trade agreement and limiting if as many U.S. companies do, they would order, let's say, from France, bring it into a U.S. warehouse, and then from that U.S. warehouse do fulfillment. But as you can see, you use the free trade. You have additional costs associated with transporting the goods on a through. Because that is done so often, quite often you find in Canada goods on the shelves in Canada are usually more expensive than the United States, and that's one of the reasons for it. Is that inefficiency in the supply chain quite often when you come into Canada. So I'll move on into valuation goods, and so very similar to the harmonized classification. It's the WTO. Our valuation formula is the same as well, in that we use the transaction value for the basis not basis for determining value for the customer purpose. So the transaction value is the price paid by the importer at arm's length, so that if it's related, then use another. And then if there is no sale for export to Canada, then there's a number of other that you go through to determine value for duty. So you have the transaction value of the goods. If for whatever reason you can't use that, these are related, or there was no transaction, they're sent you on consignment consideration, then we have to use another method for determining value for duty. And there's 6 rules really. It's transaction value, identical goods, similar goods, computed method, deducted method, and then residual. And we'll determine which best for the customer. And this would be fairly important, because many of the participants here today operating in Canada would be operating as non-residents. So I'm going to throw a scenario out there right now where we're using the valuation of goods by a U.S.-based company, the ShipBob system in Canada. So what we're going to be talking about here is valuation of goods, transaction, U.S.-based non-resident importer, but he manufactures in China. Doesn't own a factory. He's buying the goods from China, and what he usually does is under this system, and this is a system popular in the United States, is that the U.S. company buys the goods from the Chinese factory, has them shipped to Canada, imported into the United States. Imported into the United States, placed in a warehouse, pays U.S. tariffs on them, and then once the goods are landed in the United States, they the Canadian market as the U.S. market. So they may already be acting as a non-resident importer. Have and all that, but the difference is that they're putting the inventory in before they do the fulfillment to the customer. So under this scenario, the United States from the U.S. This is the scenario 1. So this is just a purely hypothetical. Yeah, let's look at this one. Go to the next slide. I'll just kind of run through what the numbers. So this is the scenario I'm talking about. So what we've got is the company widgets. He has in China. His purchase manufacturer is $20. His sale widget into the Canadian market to his customers in Canada, which would be a landed price, would be $100 Canadian. For duty under this scenario that would be declared to the Canadian would be $100. The transaction sale price for the goods to Canada. So now the U.S. company, of course, only paid $20 for those goods. He imported them first. So our hypothetical has a 10% duty rate. So we've paid out $2 in U.S. duties to the U.S. government to bring them into the United States. We used the number, and this is transportation, this is customs brokerage, this is insurance, $30 to get, and plus fulfillment costs and whatnot to get the goods into the United States. And we're treating that order as if it was going to be resold at a later date in the dollars. So under this scenario, which is quite typical, a U.S. company and imports the entire order into the United States, the whole thing, and so the total expense on this per widget works $2 in expenses. So they've got a sale price of that widget. Expenses are going to be $40 plus 20. For a lot of companies, that works. And if you want, you can even file a duty drawback in duty. What I'm going to do is show you of the advantages that ShipBob will give you. So let's take that same scenario, U.S. company in China, but now rather than ship the goods that are destined for the Canadian marketplace through the United States, ShipBob in Canada. U.S.-based e-commerce business manufactures goods in China. Business directly from China, Canadian warehouse. This is the importer of record. This is a non-resident importer, and they have a business number. Since the business and it won't have to pay any USD or have any of those. So now let's see how this works for the ShipBob customer. So here's scenario number 2. Shipping directly from China to ShipBob warehouse. The purchase price from the warehouse in China is the same, $20. The sale price is still the same, $100 per unit. But now the value for duty that we declare to Canada Customs is no longer $100 because it's based on the transaction value on the sale for export to Canada. So the sale that triggered the export to Canada was the purchase by the Canadian consumer that reached out to the U.S. company, ordered the goods, and had them shipped. So the value there was based on $100. 10% was duty. So value for duty is reduced down to the U.S. company's purchase price because there is no purchaser in Canada. For duty becomes $20. To get it there is roughly $30, but we've eliminated the $2 U.S. duty and reduced 10% the duty paid to the Canadian government, $2 from $20. So just on this, under this scenario, by using ShipBob, your expenses went from $32 per unit down to $32 from $42. So that's a huge opportunity to the Canadian market, and something that we've talked about, and that may be down the line in the you're in a and to do all your Canadian fulfillment, and you might want to say, well, wait a second, what if we moved everything China into Canada and did fulfillment back into the United States under Section 321 clearance? Another date. There are things that can be savings by using this ShipBob scenario. Thing I'm going to jump onto is goods and services tax. So far I've talked about getting you set up, getting you the rates, the cost of Canusa services, duty, getting the rate, HS classification, trade agreements, your costing, bottom line. I'd like to talk to you about tax in Canada. In this case, GST is a domestic sales tax that applies of taxable services within Canada. So GST within Canada is something that Canadians are very conversant in. We're used to seeing it. We're used to paying it. Resident moving into the Canadian marketplace and doing fulfillment from within Canada is also required to participate in GST. So just an overview of what that means. In Canada, I'll get back to my earlier, with annual sales in excess of $1,000, required to become a GST registrant. A GST registrant is required to collect goods and services tax on the sale of taxable goods and services. They're required to file tax returns, and they're entitled to something called input tax credits. So the way that it works in Canada is, number one, yes, it applies to most goods and services, and the national rate, the federal rate from coast to coast, is 5%. So everything, all taxable goods and services that you buy in Canada has a 5% GST rate built into that. Now, we also have something in Canada called zero rated. And zero rated means that we wanted to exempt those from being subject to 5% GST, but rather than use that terminology, we said the rates are zero. And that's going to become important when I explain the input tax credits in a few minutes. Goods that are zero rated are basic groceries. So the groceries that I buy at a grocery store, food for human, zero rated. Prescription drugs, medical devices are all zero rated. In Canada, we're not paying 5%. We're not paying any GST. So that's the collective side of things. On the other side is input tax credits. So Canusa Logistics is a GST registrant in Canada. We provide customs brokerage and logistics services. So when we provide those services, GST 5% on our invoice to all our customers. Everything we purchase, services or office equipment or vehicles, when we're buying them, are charged less GST. File quarterly GST returns with the federal government. So on that return, we're going to declare the amount of taxable sales in one side of the ledger, of tax that we collected on behalf of the government on those sales. And on the other side of the ledger, we are going to list the GST that we paid out to our vendors during that same reporting period. So whatever that GST amount, however much that we've already paid out to our vendors, we get to deduct that amount from the amount that we owe the government. So that the input tax credit is the way that businesses who are registered for GST make themselves whole, GST to pass through the corporate through to the end consumer, which is who's responsible, ultimately responsible for payment of GST. So that's pretty much goods and services tax works. Now, whenever you use the term acronym GST, goods and services tax, usually you'll see it with GST/HST. And what HST stands for is Harmonized Sales Tax. What that means is we have this federal tax that applies coast to coast in all 10 provinces and 3 territories at a rate of 5%. But then we have provincial governments that took their provincial sales tax, which was a separate entity altogether, with the rules of the federal GST, and so they called that harmonized sales tax. I'm residing in Ontario. We're one of the provinces that did that. So I mentioned the national rate of 8%. Well, Ontario took their provincial rate of 8%. They harmonized the rules with the federal GST, and then when you're doing GST business in Ontario, you're collecting 13% on your sale. The other 4 provinces that harmonized their sales tax were all in the Maritimes: the Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. So all of those provinces also have the harmonized sales tax, and the rules are the same as the federal HST. The only thing that differs is the rate that you charge on your sales. One of the nice things from a cash flow perspective is that because customs is administered by the federal government, that the federal rate when you're importing goods into Canada, you're paying the 5%, but when you're selling the good to the customer in Canada, you're 18%. So there's that 8% spread, and you don't remit that additional funds to the federal government until you file your return, which more than likely will either be filed on a quarterly basis or basis. That is where Canada Revenue Agency slots most foreign companies or most non-resident importers that are GST registered. And of course, as far as filing GST returns, our company will file those returns on on your behalf, and we'll handle the entire process and guide you through every step of this with Canada Revenue and GST. Next slide. Actually, sorry, previous slide. If we could just go back, I'm sorry. Yeah. So we have goods and back one.
Okay, sorry. This one?
My fault.
No, you're
Yeah.
fine.
That. So we've talked about goods and 5% coast to coast in filing requirements, and then harmonized the rate increasing for those provinces that you're doing business in. And then we have 4 provinces that have their individual provincial sales tax, but it's not harmonized with GST. So it's subject to its own rules, and those rules sales have a compliance aspect. So those provinces are British Columbia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. So that if you're selling into any of those provinces, there are going to be provincial sales tax, GST, and through British Columbia. For the most part, British Columbia and Manitoba are similar. What they do is they say for you to participate or be required to participate in our provincial tax structure with e-commerce, then you should be doing fulfillment from within. ShipBob is not doing in either British Columbia or Manitoba, and you targeting residents of British Columbia and Manitoba specifically, and that company to company, but that would mean that you are specifically residents a special offer for those people in order to so if you're not doing those 2 things, you're not likely litigation. Quebec and Saskatchewan well, Quebec has they have $30,000 threshold. So if you're doing sales in Quebec, until you hit $30,000 direct sale to consumer, you're just if you're selling on Amazon platform or other platforms, like, you're not required to register. The Quebec government requires Amazon that the tax cannot be and not. So this would be more from direct web sales or direct sale to consumer. And Saskatchewan is probably the least. They do require, even if you have only the goods you are required, but they also have the exact like Amazon. Of what to look at is taxing concern, but once we're sitting down one situations and give you the guidance that you can navigate this as well and make sure that you're compliant. Now we can go to the
Michael.
So
awesome. Let's spend like a quick minute going over the NPN, and then we have a lot of questions, so I want to make sure we get to them.
Okay, so I'll just wrap this up. It has to do with more of our resources and some of the consulting partners that we work with. If you're products, any food related, and I'm going to add FDA to the reverse. It's going to be that's sort of guys that you need coming into Canada for natural health products, drugs, drug consumer labeling. We have bilingual Canada, food related and whatnot. We'll introduce in equation to support it. But we, it's for you to use and to be compliant and to get ready to go. Things I'm just going to throw over time, just because that it's responded to COVID. We have in a number of services provided by them. For instance, that within 30 days can out this month. We have a guy through that process and through not a big deal. Aware of lead on the Health Canada side, health product number. Those are right now. It's from getting your approval from that. So be done. Allows people to Canadian market, but it might not be if you're in certain goods like natural health products. Your numbers ready to go. Your approval ready to go. We can work around. We can try and sort of barriers that to allow immediate access while working on getting the numbers. I'm going to wrap it up there, and let's jump into the questions.
All right, thanks, Michael. That was very informative. We really appreciate you giving that information. Isabel asked the question, with what monthly volume do you recommend starting international warehousing? Jordan, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Isabel. And I think it definitely comes back to the next question that I see in the chat about this. It's talking about, like, a lot of it comes down to your products that you're shipping. So Ed asked a question right below yours, Isabel, where he's talking about they do D2C selling of non-alcoholic drinks, relatively low value, but a high weight. So when we look at Ed's product, we would look at him and say, well, you have a high weight of, let's say, 15 to 18 pounds. Doing that in a cross-border move gets very expensive from a transportation cost-wise. So when talking to Ed, I may advise and say, like, okay, you're doing, let's say, 100 shipments a month. It may be better for you to be in Canada at this point, A, to help you grow your business there, and then B, to help you tremendously reduce those shipping costs. Because like I said, those higher weighted packages are going to cost more from an international perspective. So Isabel, like, I'd be more than happy. There's my email address on the thing. Shoot me an email. We can kind of talk through your products to find like where that perfect like amount is for you to be in a Canadian warehouse.
Awesome. Thank you, Jordan. What are the risks if, for example, to try to reduce the duty by recognizing the imported goods from China to Canada as a semi-finished product, meaning the imported devices are turning on but final product? Would there be any risk there?
Exactly by risk, but unfinished goods and finished would just be counted as unfinished goods. But you should always be describing what they are. So if they are finished, but it's unfinished goods, everything in the tariff classification system, the duty rate and the value for duty. I'd say the biggest risk to a non-resident importer is when you're an NRI, you're government subject to audit, so that customs can go back 3 years and transactions, so that if something isn't being accurately or you're using correct harmonized classification, is a very easy thing to do. You could be assessed. This is why getting back to what my slide, certainty. That's what that's really is, that cost certainty. We work with you, not the lowest rate of duty, but accurate rate of duty. We want it to be low. We love it to be, but it's important that we get you the right rate of duty. So in other words, if it should be properly classified selling price to the customer in Canada, we don't want you selling goods in Canada for 3 years and then having Canada Customs come back do a reassessment on something that you import duty free for 3 years, and these goods are subject to a 10% duty, or then they come back. Bottom line. So that's really what a non-resident importer should be focused on, is getting the numbers right. And it's easy to tell the harmonized classification of the customs broker, but with these trade agreements and with globalization, more companies are wanting to know not just and who came up with it. Was it binding ruling? What, I mean, who did it? Other are your vendors supplying their harmonized classification for the EU? Even sale, because as classification number is for any sort of imported goods or from a third party, because that's going to that's going to be part of the rule that's going to apply to your goods. So classification of goods is very important.
Thank you.
It's
Michael. Sorry, we have a few more questions I wanted to get to. It's no problem. I love all the information, but I did want to ask this one. If you're selling on Amazon Marketplace, for example, do you still need the GST ID?
Not harmonized GST or GST, but the collection of will fall on Amazon, and GST you would be so yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that.
And
it looks like
something.
Sorry, it actually looks like we're at time. So for those that we didn't answer your questions, we will make sure to reach out. As you can see on the screen, I have Jordan Russell's email as well as Michael's. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to them. We will be sending this recording out for everyone to listen to and get any information that they missed during this presentation. So thank you all so much for listening in. We hope that you learned a lot about expanding into Canada. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.